Good evening, everyone. It is now 6 p.m. and welcome to the May 2nd City Council meeting of the City of Bel Air Beach. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Patty, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Frank Baker.
Present.
Councilmember Leslie Notero.
Here.
Councilmember Lloyd Roberts.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Sable.
Here.
Vice Mayor Glenn Gunn.
Here.
Mayor Dave Gaddis.
Here.
City Manager Lynn Reeves.
Here.
City Attorney Andrew Salzman.
Here.
And Councilmember Jody Shirley was unable to attend.
Thank you. The first item is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion? Motion. Frank Baker made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Glenn Gunn made the second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Let's move right on to number 2, which is citizens' comments. During this time, citizens will have up to 3 minutes to discuss any non-agenda topic. When called on, please come to the podium, state your name and address, then direct your comments or questions to the council. Would anyone like to address the council? Yes.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Cindy Peters. I live at 2500 Gulf Boulevard, Bel Air Beach. I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak on beach renourishment. I sat at City Council in the 1990s and appreciate all the unappreciated work that you do at City Council. In the Pinellas County Comprehensive Plan, Coastal Management Goals, Objectives, and Policies is a chapter titled Beach and Dunes. In this chapter, Pinellas County has entered into a 50-year project cooperation agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers. That's for 50 years. In order to qualify for the first beach nourishment, 4 properties on Gulf Boulevard gave county easements based upon this agreement. One of the stipulations regarding the easement states that failure of the U.S. Corps of Engineers and/or the state of Florida and/or the county of Pinellas to restore and maintain beach seaward of the established erosion control line as to provide reasonable protection from storm events, the easement will cease and revert back to the association. I will give you a copy of the easement resolution passed by the Board of Directors at Tortuga Simon. It seems as if the Corps of Engineers changes the rules each and every time Bel Air Beach and other communities are due for beach renourishment. The Corps is requiring the county to obtain 100% perpetual easements from property owners in communities south of us. Most of these parcels of land are located either into the dunes or east. As we are aware, beach renourishment is done west of these dunes, and these easements are completely unnecessary. By the Corps of Engineers constantly upping the rules, communities and counties constantly have to jump through hoops to obtain beach renourishment. Is there any reason as to why there is confusion regarding the easements and what the Corps' ultimate motives are? I'm surprised that they haven't declared eminent domain. Without the beach renourished, the dunes will be lost, all the sand will be gone, and heaven forbid if we get a hurricane or a strong tropical storm, extensive damage could be done not only to the Gulf front condos, but to the entire island of Bel Air Beach before the next scheduled renourishment in 2030. Thank you for your time And I do have the resolution and photos of pre-beach renourishment.
Thank you, Ms. Peters. I'd like to see a copy of that after the meeting, if that's possible. Thank
Do you
you.
want me to give it to the city clerk?
That'll be fine. Do we have any other citizens that would like to speak tonight? All right. That being said, we move to item 3 now. We have a presentation from Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. Let's begin with the Law Enforcement Monthly Report.
Good evening, everyone. Sergeant Switch, Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. The statistics I'm going to present this evening are for the month of March 2022. We'll start off with the UCR Property and Person Crimes Report. Happy to report that we have zeros all across the board. For arrests for the month of March 2022, we had a total of 12 arrests. For deputy activity, as you can see on the report, traffic stops. So traffic enforcement lead that with a total of 190 for the month, and then direct patrols. Finally, for crash and citation analysis data, we had 1 crash in the city, which was around the 1800 block of Health Boulevard. And then we had a total of 196 citations and warnings issued in the city, of which included in that is also going to be voting citations and warnings, and it looks like we had 158 warnings issued, and citations would be 18 citations. If I could, I'd also like to touch on last month in April. Of note, many residents have approached me and asked about some activity that occurred. I forget the exact date, but it would have been during my shift. There was a lot of police activity, a lot of lights, sirens, K9, and the Eagle, our agency helicopter, was out. And just to put everybody at ease, it was a traffic stop in which the driver bailed from the driver's seat and ran, and then we immediately set up a perimeter, and with the assistance of K9. Unfortunately, we weren't able to apprehend him, but we stayed in the area long enough to make sure that there was no risk of any future involvement with that subject. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Does anyone on the council have any questions? No? Thank you, Sergeant.
All right, thank you.
All right, next up, we have Code Enforcement Report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, staff, and citizens. Steve Klapke for the record. Just to give you a little update, a couple things that we are working on. We're still working on some of these individuals out there working without permits or being licensed in Pinellas County. Still working very closely with the building department and Mr. Thomas with the licensing board and taking care of a lot of those problems. The other thing that we're working on with Kyle is the reports for the National Pollution Elimination Discharge. So I am also doing that. So basically what this is, if somebody's having a house built, the silt stream has to be up around the building itself. If somebody's draining for a pool, they have to have either hay bales or some type of sock to trap any of the pollution that's coming out from the ground. So I am working with Kyle on that. But other than that, it's been an active month, but again, no complaints from anybody, and I'm open to any questions.
Council, any questions? Thank you very much, Deputy. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Have a good evening.
You too. Okay, now we're up to agenda item number 4. When we get to the consent agenda, we will be presenting a proclamation designating the month of May as Lupus Awareness Month. Today we have a presentation from Gina Shell, who is the Southeast Region Lupus Foundation Advocacy Co-Chair and fellow member of Leadership Pinellas Class of 2022. Ms. Shell, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Gina Shell. Thank you so much for having me. I'm here just to share a little bit about lupus, which is a systemic disease a lot of people are not aware of. This is a disease that affects over 1.5 million Americans, 90% of whom are childbearing age women. It is a disease that, due to its lack of awareness, it takes approximately 7 years on average for diagnosis, and approximately 50% of these patients end up ultimately on medical disability. So obviously has a lot of financial repercussions as well. What we're hoping with proclamations such as the ones that you are signing this evening is to help to increase awareness so that patients will result in going to see their physicians and getting diagnoses a little bit earlier, and thereby helping to prevent a lot of the complications such as heart disease, stroke, kidney failure that come part and parcel with this disease. So we really appreciate the time to be able to present to you all. We'd like to make you all aware that the Lupus Foundation of America is here to help to support any patients who may be going through the diagnosis phase of lupus or their families, and we're here to support them with all types of resources, and like to sincerely appreciate for you all signing the proclamation this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we are up to agenda item number 5. In case you didn't know it, May the 1st begins turtle nesting season here in Pinellas County. Lindsay Flynn is the manager of the Sea Turtle Conservation Program at the Clearwater Marine Aquarium and has a special presentation for us today. Ms. Lynn, you have the floor.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Lindsay Flynn. I'm the manager of the Sea Turtle Conservation Program at Clearwater Marine Aquarium. And I'm going to be giving you a quick presentation about sea turtle nesting here in Pinellas County. And I'm going to start by asking you a question. Hopefully this goes. All right. How many species of sea turtle are there in the world? They're out of number. 3,000. Anybody? Come on. 30. 30? Close. 7. 7 species of sea turtle in the entire world. All right. How many of those nest in the state of Florida?
Oh.
Oh. 2. 5. Who said 5? Winner, winner. Up to 5 species. 3 nest commonly here in the state of Florida. So that's the largest species, the leatherback, the loggerhead, and the green sea turtles. Those are the 3 species that nest most commonly here. And here in Pinellas County, that is the loggerhead sea turtle. That is the species that nests most commonly here in North Pinellas County and Pinellas County. So we're going to focus on loggerhead a little bit more. We're going to talk about what the nesting process looks like, and it begins with the adult female emerging from the water at night. She's going to crawl up the beach somewhere between the high tide line and the primary dune, and she's going to select a nest site. We don't really know the parameters that they use to select a nest site. It could be a lot of different things, but once they do choose a site, they start preparing it by creating something called a body pit. It's a shallow depression in the sand that they create by making sort of broad movements with their front flippers. Once that shallow depression is created, they're going to create something called an egg chamber. So they're going to use their rear flippers like a shovel, and they're going to dig a hole in the sand that kind of looks like an upside down light bulb. And once they cannot sort of remove any more sand, now's the time to start laying eggs. Loggerhead sea turtles lay somewhere between 80 and 120 eggs per nest, on average 4 to 5 times in a single season. It's a lot of eggs. They lay a nest about every 2 weeks. So she's a very busy turtle during the season. When she's done depositing all those eggs, she kind of works backwards. She covers those eggs with sand using her rear flippers. She sort of packs it in tightly. And then she's going to camouflage the site and the scent of that nest by sort of moving about sand with her front flippers. The reason she does that is because because she wants to camouflage the site and the scent of the nest from land predators like coyotes that we have in the area, or raccoons. And once she's done with that, she's going to simply turn around and crawl back towards the water. She doesn't sort of provide any maternal care for her clutch. She's not going to come back to it and check on it. That nest is going to incubate for about 2 months, and then hopefully those hatchlings will emerge together at night and make their way towards the water. We're going to talk a little bit about why that might happen, but that's the goal. Now that you know a little bit more about sea turtles, why should we care about them? Well, they're protected under state and federal law. At the federal level, they're protected by the Endangered Species Act. At the state level, they're protected under the Marine Turtle Protection Act. We also want to care specifically about the loggerhead sea turtle because, as it turns out, Florida hosts more than 90% of all loggerhead nesting activity in North America. So this is what the state of Florida looks like. That black line indicates where they nest in the state. That's pretty prevalent. They don't nest in the Big Bend area of Florida because that's mainly marshlands, and they need sandy beaches in order to nest. But everywhere else, sandy beaches, they're nesting there. Now, internationally, Florida is one of 2 primary nesting locations for the loggerhead sea turtle in the entire world. Oman is the other location, and if you don't remember where Oman is, it's in the Arabian Peninsula next to Yemen and Saudi Arabia. So I think it's cool that little Florida is one of 2 primary nesting locations in the entire world. Now, what's unfortunate is that the nesting population in Oman has seen a significant decrease in nesting. That's up to 79%. So that means it's really important that we do everything that we can to protect our nesting population of loggerhead sea turtles, because as our population goes, so goes the global population of loggerhead sea turtles. We also need to care because sea turtles actually help stabilize the beach. Talking about beach renourishment, when they lay their eggs, not all of their eggs are going to hatch. It's very natural and typical for that to happen. Those eggs then provide vital nutrients to the beach vegetation to allow them to grow. That beach vegetation then stabilizes the sand and builds up the dunes, and then by stabilizing the beach over time, it maintains that nesting habitat not only for sea turtles, but seabirds and shorebirds as well. And you can help our sea turtles by reducing obstacles and reducing light pollution to prevent disorientation. So we're going to talk about what that means in just a minute. Unfortunately, not all of our tourists recognize that sea turtles nest on the beach at night. They tend to leave items on the beach, toys and chairs and other things. And leaving those items creates an obstruction for our nesting turtles. So they don't expect to encounter those, so if they encounter them, they're very likely to leave without nesting. Now, it's very possible that they might come up later in the night and end up nesting, which is great, but if they come up onto the nesting beach and encounter these time after time after time, they will not nest and they could release their eggs in the water, and they're no longer viable. So it's really important that we remove our items at the end of the day to prevent that from happening. These are just some instances of sea turtles encountering different types of obstacles in our survey area. And that goes for holes in sandcastles too. When they encounter those big mounds of sand, they don't expect it, and they will leave without nesting as well. Now, to talk a little bit about light pollution. So, this is what the state of Florida looks like at night. You can see little Pinellas County here among very brightly lit places like Miami, Orlando, Jacksonville, that kind of thing. We are the most densely populated county in the entire state. We have a lot of people here who like to move about at night. We use a lot of light at night. The problem is that can interfere with sea turtle nesting. So under natural conditions, sea turtles use brightness as a guide to locate the water. The celestial light, moonlight and starlight, are bouncing off of the sea and creating a nice bright horizon, and that contrasts with the darkness of the land. So they're able to orient correctly towards the water. Now, if we have artificial lighting on at night, unfortunately that artificial light competes with natural light. So the turtles are going to follow whatever's brighter. So if an artificial light or lights are are brighter than the celestial light, they're going to go towards that, thinking that that's where the ocean is, and it is not. We often find them in places like pools and parking lots and roadways because of that, where they can eventually perish. Now, it's important to note here that the rule of thumb that we use is if you're standing normally on the beach, if you can see the light, so can the turtle. Now, what does a disorientation event look like? Hopefully you can see this, but here is the crawl track of an adult female. Way back there was where the nest was, so she crawled all the way to the foreground of the image along the beach trying to find the ocean because residential lighting may have confused her or distracted her from finding the water again, and that wastes precious energy that she needs in order to continue to lay those clutches of eggs throughout the season. Now I'm going to warn you that the next few images are a little graphic, but this is the result of disorientation events. And unfortunately, it is adults and hatchlings finding themselves in areas that they should not be, like roadways, where they can get impacted by motor vehicles. It's happened with adults, it's happened with baby sea turtles. Aside from being impacted by motor vehicles, they can just wander about the beach just trying to find the water, and that wastes precious energy that hatchlings need in order to swim out into the deep water where they find floating algal mats to live for their first few years of their life. If they don't have that energy, they're not going to make it. It also makes them more vulnerable to land predators like coyotes, different species of birds and raccoons. It's just another image of, unfortunately, some hatchlings impacted by motor vehicles. This is what a hatchling disorientation event looks like. That black circle indicates the nest site. These red lines indicated where the hatchlings went after they emerged from the nest site, so they should be going towards the water. Unfortunately, none of them did, and they sort of wandered about the beach, wasting energy trying to find the water. And these are hatchlings that may not make it out to the water because of that. But there's good news, we can do something about it. Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission is our governing agency, and they have a motto for sea turtle friendly lighting. It's called Keep It Long, Keep It Low, and Keep It Shielded. You want to keep it a long wavelength light. To get a little technical, it's above 560 nanometers wavelength. That means light that is emitting in the amber and red spectrum. They are less confused by that. They're less likely to be disoriented by that type of light. You also want to keep it low to the ground and use the lowest lumens and wattage necessary for the usage. And you also want to shield the light source from being seen from the beach. All three of those guidelines must be met in order to be considered sea turtle friendly. And this is what a sea turtle friendly property looks like. So if you can see under the before image, this was a property that another nonprofit called Sea Turtle Conservancy retrofitted in the Panhandle. Before, it was a property with lots of white, bright light that sea turtles of any size class would be attracted to. And then the after image is what sea turtle friendly light looks like. So we're not asking people to turn off the light. We're not asking people to fear for falling down or anything like that. We want to provide plenty of light for safety and security. But we also want to provide light that is less distracting or confusing to sea turtles. And under these types of conditions, they're allowed to naturally orient towards the water. But can they really see a difference? Well, we're going to find out right now. So I'm going to do something really quickly with you guys. I'm going to give you this special card that will sort of let you see what a sea turtle sees. Okay, so to us, those pictures just like two different colored lights, right? All right, well, I'm going to show you some lights here in the council chambers to see what a sea turtle sees. So first, I want you to look at this light just with your normal eyeballs, not directly at the light, just see sort of what it casts, okay? That might be a light that we would normally see at anyone's property at night. Okay. And this is what a sea turtle friendly light looks like. So it's emitting that amber color, and it's also shielded. Now, you guys can see that. All right, now I want you to look at the same light with your handy dandy tool. Can you see that light? Yeah, so you can see that pretty clearly. So a sea turtle might be attracted to that if it's brighter than the celestial light, right? Can you see that? Can you see it now? Right, so it's not that they can't see it at all. They can, especially if the more lumens or wattage you use, you can see it, but they're less likely to be distracted or confused by this. Now, it's important to mention here that there are other types of artificial lights that they can get confused by too. Even flashlights or cell phone lights can confuse, especially hatchling turtles that are trying to make it towards the water. That functions just like any other type of light, so they can become confused and follow your cell phone light while you look for ghost crabs at night instead of following the celestial light. So we always encourage people to not use white light, but if you need a light for safety and security, they do offer red LED flashlights and headlamps that you can use alternatively. Now, to report sea turtle sightings. So if you see sea turtles this season, we'd love to hear about it. You can report your sightings anywhere in the state of Florida to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission at the numbers that you see there. If you're here in Bel Air Beach or anywhere else in North and Pinellas County, that's Clearwater and Treasure Island. Clearwater Marine Aquarium does perform sea turtle nesting surveys in our area, and you can call us to report that. You'll notice that at every beach access point in Bel Air Beach, there is a special sign that says "Help Protect Sea Turtles." That does talk about the do's and don'ts of the nesting season and ways to report. You'll also see special signage at each one of our nest sites this season that indicates the same thing. So please don't use any lights here, don't touch them, don't disturb them. If you see anything, please report it. So with that, I say thank you so much for listening, and I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you, Ms. Flynn. It's a very informative presentation. I appreciate you coming and giving us that. Does anyone on the council have any questions?
I have a question. So how obvious is it to see the sand after the mother turtle has come and laid her eggs? Because I have seen some of your staff or some staff out there that are fencing them off, which is wonderful. I'm just curious, is it pretty obvious to them as to where the eggs have been laid?
Good question. Yes, so we go through training through Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission every year or every other year for ongoing site training like that. But yes, everybody receives training so they can easily site the crawl tracks of the nesting female and the nest site itself.
Anyone else on the council? Yes.
So you have a good idea when mom comes ashore and lays her clutch or eggs. So 2 months go by. Do you take a proactive role in that, set up a watch so when the babies start going in the wrong direction, you can kind of herd them in the right direction? Or?
That's a really good question. We did do something similar several years ago because we had such a significant disorientation rate here in the county. We placed special cages called restraining cages on those nests and set up volunteer groups to watch them and make sure that they go the correct way. Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission has since stopped that program, only so they can ascertain the true problem associated with disorientations and sort of allowing us to educate our residents and our beachgoers about sea turtle friendly light and the importance of making a change to sea turtle friendly light, because managing or implementing a night program like that is expensive and difficult to do.
I mean, it seems like there's there's a lot of interest in volunteerism and stuff like that. We see it in beach cleanup and stuff like that. So I mean, witnessing that sort of stuff kind of breaks your heart when you see these critters going in the wrong direction. So in the name of, hey, we need better statistics, whatever. Seems. Thank you.
Any other council members? I'm sure there's some, oh, yes.
Just to follow up on that, so how accurate is the 2-month period? So if you guys know that on January the 1st, the mother laid the eggs, how accurate is the 60 days typically?
It depends on the weather conditions, so, and where it's laid. So if it's out in mid-beach where it's being exposed to sun all the time, it might be a little less. If it's exposed to rainwater or shade conditions, it might be a little more.
Anyone else? I'm sure we have citizens out there that would like to ask a question. Any citizens? You first.
Are you, so you're not, no longer relocating the nest where the sea turtle lays?
That's a good question. We do not typically relocate nests unless it's necessary for a construction project like beach renourishment, or there are very specific conditions that are met, because ultimately the sea turtle females lay their nests a lot better than we ever could for them. So we like to leave them in place and make sure that they incubate naturally as much as possible.
Yes, all the way in the back.
It's not a question, I just want to say that,
Excuse me, could you stand up so we can hear you?
okay, a number of times over the past 8 years, I've been blessed to help her or encounter her on the beach, and she and her team go above and beyond, and I applaud you, and you know I'll be there again this year. I've been able to help her find nests, and
So you would probably say that beach renourishment is very vital to these turtles being able to continue to come up on beaches to lay their eggs every season, correct?
Beach nourishment does provide a method for providing sea turtle nesting habitat.
Without the beaches, then turtles would go away.
Right, they do have to have sandy beaches in order to nest. So if we didn't have those sandy beaches, they would go elsewhere.
Yes, Mr. Lux?
Thank you.
Would you mind standing up, please?
Yeah, no problem. I agree with the comment over here by Debbie. Thanks for the great work. Is it fact or fiction that when they are born, the mothers come back to the same region to give birth? And it does tie to Steve's comment about beach. If the beach is gone, however many years they live, however many miles they travel, that's disorientation in itself, is it? If that is a fact that they come back, some internal GPS system or whatever it is.
Right, so it is true that sea turtles tend to come back to their natal beach, or the beach that they were born at. There is some research to suggest that it is more of a range for certain species. There's a lot more research that needs to be done for that. For example, green sea turtles might be capable of nesting in multiple states in the same season, but that may not necessarily be true for loggerheads. There's a lot more research that needs to be done that I don't know that I'm prepared to comment on that right now.
Do you ever get involved with the renourishment activity for this reason?
Oh, good question. So our last renourishment project that we had in this area, which was back in 2018, we did provide monitoring services for that project. So we were responsible for monitoring, at least in North Pinellas County, so in this area, for all sea turtle nesting activity. And if it was going to be impacted by the renourishment project, we were given special permissions from FWC to relocate them.
We'd like to see the involvement on the other side to help us get it. I'm just kidding. Thank you.
Just like a follow-up question. I don't know about anybody else, but I've seen the sea turtle nest before we got beach renourishment. And I've seen so many eggs, the little ping pong balls out there, because there was no nest, there was no place for it to lay it, except right on the tide line. And very few of them survived. a storm would come in and it would be washed out.
Right, so they can be washed over or washed out with major storm activity. The good news is that sea turtles do try and hedge their bets in that way, in that they lay multiple nests per season with many eggs in those clutches. So even if we had a zero season, for example, the population itself would still be okay because there are nesting activities elsewhere. Obviously, that's not what we want. We want a successful season every season, but they do hedge their bets to sort of make sure that somebody survives.
Thank you very much, Ms. Flynn. I appreciate your presentation, and I look forward to welcoming you back next year if it works out.
We would love to come back. Thank you so much.
All right, so now we are on to the city attorney report. Mr. Solomon?
Mayor, council, if you haven't had a chance to see that the U.S. Supreme Court made a very interesting ruling today, that ruling will affect all municipalities regarding how you handle your flags and to display those particular flags throughout the city. I will be meeting with the city manager to discuss the current policy and perhaps bringing forward a policy for council to consider a workshop regarding this to make sure that you are still in control over who can display flags on the city property. So that it's an interesting opinion without going too much into detail, but as long as it is government speech on the flags that you display, that's fine. If you start allowing a lot of private use to display flags, then it becomes a First Amendment right. So we want to make sure that you all, or the city, is in control of determining what kind of flags you're going to put out and who can use city property for flags.
Interesting.
That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. I look forward to hearing about that. And now we are on to the city manager report. Mr. Reeves?
Mayor and Council, you've got a copy of my report in there, a couple items on it we're going to discuss later in the agenda, the 12th and 13th drainage project, the 7th and 16th Street seawall, and we've got the city attorney interview scheduled for Thursday, May 5th at 5 o'clock, and we're doing the first reading tonight on the revised section 94. I've put at your positions the preliminary budget, and during the month of May, I would like to meet with each of you individually to kind of go over that. So we'll use that, and we'll schedule something that we can do through the week. The children's playground out here, we're going to have to replace, or we're going to have to take it down because it's deteriorated. And just an update, I did go back to the county for the beach renourishment. The county contract does say 10 years from the time frame, and the federal pays 60%, the state 20%, the county 20% towards beach renourishment. I am going to discuss with them the parking spaces because the contract has a little different number than they've always told us. So he sent me the contract, so that's kind of nice to have. So that's all I have unless you have questions.
Any questions for Ms. Reeves?
Lynn, on all these street drainage projects, my street, last Friday, we had less than a half an inch of rain at low tide. It was a total mess again. I don't know what size conduit, I think it was 18 or 20 inch they put in there, but I don't know if the baffles aren't working. I really think before we start spending a lot more money that we look at this. I mean, I think the water went down as far as like 4 houses down in the street that time.
Well, we can look at the baffle. The baffle on actually 8th Street is very small because the pipe line that's going between the house at the end of the street has been reduced by seawalls over the seawalls and they made the pipe smaller. So it's a small, but we'll check the baffles to make sure they're closing, especially if it's low.
They should have been wide open because we were probably an hour before low tide. And the water was just at least 2 feet in the middle of the street.
Yeah, I mean, I know 12th and 13th, there wasn't any, and they have baffles, so there may be an issue with the baffle. We'll check on it.
I'm just curious, was that whenever we, what was it, we had 3 inches of rain?
Yeah, well, Friday, I think we had half an inch. I mean, it came down hard for a good half hour, 45 minutes. But it just tumbled, you know, and it just didn't drain.
Okay, well, I guess we need to check into that, see what the problem is. Any other questions for Mr. Reeves? All right, well, let's move on to the city clerk report. Ms. Gentry.
On my report, the main thing was the city manager search resumes that we've been receiving. We've gotten 18 so far, so just starting working on those a little bit, and the deadline is May 23rd. Then the second thing was the Muni Code supplement. We did get the proof copies back, so we'll start reviewing those. And then the last thing was the city board.
Sorry about that. Please continue.
The city board and committee appreciation lunch that was hosted by city council. And I think that went very well, and everyone seemed to enjoy themselves. And I just want to say for the record that since I've been here, that is the most well-attended by council and all the board members. So I was very happy to see that.
Good. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Gentry? Yes.
Did we get our city stats info into FLC? I saw something had a list.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Okay, so now we are on to agenda item 9, 10, and 11. Just for the sake of time, I'm asking for approval of the April 4th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes approval. April 11th, 2022 City Council work session minutes approval. And April 18th, 2022 City Council work session minutes approval. Do I have a motion? So moved. Motion made by Frank Banker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that you?
Somebody else said something as well. I think we
Second.
Say it.
Mayor, there's 4 more items.
Correct. What I wanted to do was just do these 3 by themselves, and then I was going to do the other ones individually. And that way, just to speed the meeting along, because we're running short on time. Okay, so the second was made by Mike Zabel. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes, and we're finished with the minutes. Now we are on to authorization for the mayor to execute an interlocal agreement for a funding match of a Southwest Florida Water Management District Cooperative Funding Initiative grant. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Leslie Nataro, do I have a second?
Second.
Boyd Roberts. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes, and we'll get that signed and then move forward with it. Next, we're up to item 13. This is for authorization for the mayor to execute the addendum to the city manager employment agreement. Do I have a motion? Frank Baker? Do I have a second? Leslie Nataro. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion passes. Now we are on to item 14. This is a proclamation designating the month of May as Lupus Awareness Month. Proclamation. Whereas lupus is an unpredictable and misunderstood autoimmune disease that can cause severe damage to the tissue and organs in the body, and in some cases death, and whereas more than 5 million people worldwide suffer the devastating effects of this cruel and mysterious disease, and each year over 100,000 young women, men, and children around the world are newly diagnosed with lupus, the great majority of whom are women of childbearing age, and whereas medical research efforts into lupus and the discovery of safer, more effective treatments for lupus patients are underfunded in comparison with diseases of comparable magnitude and severity, and whereas many physicians worldwide are unaware of symptoms and health effects of lupus, causing people with lupus to suffer for many years before they obtain a correct diagnosis and medical treatment, and whereas there is a deep unmet need worldwide to educate and support individuals and families affected by lupus, and whereas there is an urgent need to increase awareness in communities worldwide of the debilitating impact of lupus. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the month of May is hereby designated as Lupus Awareness Month, which lupus organizations call for increases in public and private sector funding for medical research on lupus, targeted education programs for health professionals, patients, and the public, and recognition of lupus as a significant public health issue dated this second day of May 2022. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion made by Frank Bankert. Do I have a second?
Second.
Leslie Nataro, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much, Ms. Shell. All right, now we are on to item 15, another proclamation. This is observing the 53rd Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week. Proclamation, Municipal Clerks Week, May 1st through the 7th, 2022. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is the most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk. Now, therefore, I, Dave Gaddis, Mayor of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, do recognize the week of May 1st through May 7th, 2022 as Municipal Clerks Week, and recognize that the Florida Associations of City Clerks, the Professional Association for Florida's Municipal Clerks, is celebrating its 50th anniversary. I further extend appreciation to our municipal clerk, Patricia Gentry, and to all municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent, dated this second day of May 2022. And I don't actually think this requires a motion, does it? I didn't think so. That being said, congratulations. Thank you for a job well done. And we're truly blessed to have you. And would anyone like to make a comment to Ms. Gentry? Nope.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I've worked with you a long time and really appreciate everything you've done for the city, for the people here, and for the continuing welfare of us all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd say she deserves an opportunity. Okay, I got the second one right. The first one I'll do better next time. Now we're on to item number 16. We are in the, let me make sure here. Yeah, we're in the regular agenda now. This is for consideration of appointment of alternate member to the Citizens Advisory Committee. We have an applicant, Thomas Elliott. First off, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Frank Baker, do I have a second?
Second.
Lynn Gunn. We currently only have one applicant. Again, that's Mr. Thomas Elliott. Is he here tonight? Oh, here he is. Mr. Elliott, would you like to introduce yourself to the council?
Sure. You want me to step?
Sure, please. Step right up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Thomas Elliott, as you know, and I have been part of the community since 2010, but recently retired. So my wife and I, since a year ago, January, have settled here and made this our permanent home. We look forward to working with the council and with the city staff as a member, if I'm so chosen, on the Citizens Advisory Committee. There is I think you all sense a new era of our government here, and it's very heartwarming to see new faces and new faces who've done a lot for our community, who are in a position now to continue that at the city council level. So as an advisory committee, if I'm on that committee, I'm looking forward to rolling up my sleeves and working hard and doing what is requested of us by council and by staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Elliott? Yes, Linda.
Just curious, I spent a lot of time in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. I was just wondering what kind of assistance you gave them and what your particular area of legal expertise is.
In the Virgin Islands, I was there between 74 and 79, and I started out as a VISTA volunteer with a lot of energy, fresh out of law school, looking to help in the local communities. And after 1 year as a VISTA volunteer, that was the year of required service, I stayed on in legal services of the Virgin Islands for 4.5 years, and then spent time both in St. Croix and in St. Thomas, and enjoyed St. John, as you know, is one of the beautiful islands of the Virgin Islands, but it's a rather sleepy village, at least it was back in the day when I was there. So, yes. Does that answer your question?
Well, and I was just wondering what your particular legal expertise.
Oh, sure, of course, sorry, missed that. Yes, I work in federal agency work. Immigration nationality was a lot of it, helping international investors, as well as defending people in proceedings before immigration judges. I served on the staff of the Board of Immigration Appeals, and my wife, Carolyn, who is here, is where we met. And she stayed on and retired after 41 years at the Board of Immigration Appeals as a staff attorney. So yes, that's the area, and at all levels of course. I did state litigation too, which would be general litigation, whether it's domestic law or whether it's in legal services. We did a variety of things. We did defend people in certain situations where they were denied education because of special needs. a number of different things where it was useful to get involved to help the community really take on its responsibilities to all of its community members.
Thank you. Thank you for stepping up also. I appreciate that.
Thank you all.
Any other council members? How about the citizens? Nope. Okay, back to the council. All right, Patty, can we do this by roll call?
You can, would you like to?
That'll be fine. Yep.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Notaro?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Sable?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gunn?
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis?
Yes. So that's 6-0. Congratulations, Mr. Elliott, and thank you for volunteering. We greatly appreciate it. All right, we're on to item 17. This is consideration of resolution 2022-03. Mr. Salzman, would you please read the resolution title?
Resolution 2022-03, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, to adopt an amended public records policy, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for adoption of an amended public records policy, providing for the repeal of all resolutions in conflict herewith, and establishing an effective date. That is Resolution 2022-03, read by title only.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Glenn Gunn, do we have a second?
Second.
Frank Banker. Glenn, you have the floor.
I think we discussed this at length, and not only the work session, but we discussed it a little bit at the previous council session too. That we got a consensus of all the recommended changes, unless there's something that's come up. City manager, are you working? Sorry.
I agree. Does anyone else have any comments? No? Let's go to the citizens. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say concerning this resolution? Nope. All right, back to the council. Glenn, you have the last word.
I recommend approval.
All right, let's move forward with that. And Mr. Salzman, would you please read the resolution summary again?
Love to, Mayor, if I have. You have the resolution, so I only have the title.
This is what we're voting for.
What's the summary, right?
Well, that's the title.
That's what I read already.
Okay, I wasn't sure if we were supposed to read it.
No.
Some of them we do, some of them we don't, but that's on the ordinances, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right, got it. All right, well, in that case, Patty, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Notaro? Aye. Councilmember Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Sable?
Aye.
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn?
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis?
Aye. That's 6-0, and the resolution passes. And now we are on to item number 18. Before I move on to 18, Mr. Nancy, can you hear me all right? All right, great, thank you. All right, number 18. This is where we get to read it twice, right?
Well, Mayor, normally we read the title, and then if there's any issues after the city manager goes through the changes, we would respond to those.
Okay, all right, perfect. Well, in that case, this is for consideration of ordinance 22-01. Would you please read the ordinance title, please?
Yes, Mayor. Ordinance 2201, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Bel Air Beach, Florida, providing for amendments to section 94.1, 94.2, 94.6, 94.8, 94.62, 94.69, 94.161, 94.217, 94.251 of the City Code of Ordinances pertaining to zoning, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for approval of amendments to section 94.1, 94.2, 94.6, 94.8, 94.62, 94.69, 94.162, 94-161, 94-217, 94-251, and of the City Code of Ordinances, providing for a copy to be kept on file, providing for severability, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date. That is ordinance 2201, read by title only on first reading, Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for this ordinance?
Motion?
Frank Baker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Lloyd Roberts. All right, Frank, you have the floor.
Yes, a lot of the things that were changed, minor changes in this ordinance have been risen months and months ago, and I want to thank council and you, Mr. Mayor, for getting this resolved today, and hopefully it passes, and the ordinance speaks for itself.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the council? I just had one question because I see it's highlighted in yellow. Can you give me a quick summary as to why that was dropped off?
And Mayor, I believe you're talking about section 94-256.
Correct.
Temporary structures. Council brought up at the workshop that they did not believe that this section involving moving vans and moving trailers was in the appropriate section, so we removed that pursuant to council's feelings at the workshop, and obviously subject to your vote tonight and a second reading, and we will move that to another section of the code.
Perfect, thank you. Any other council members? No? Let's take it to the citizens. Any citizen comments? Nope. All right, back to the council. With Frank Baker, you have the last word. Please take it to a vote. All right. Penny, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Roberts,
Aye.
Councilmember Zabel,
Aye.
Councilmember Baker,
Aye.
Councilmember Notaro. Aye. Vice Mayor Gunn.
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis.
Aye. 6-0, and the first reading of the ordinance passes, and we will repeat this act in a month. Thank you very much. Now we move on to item number 19. This is to authorize the city manager to award the 12th and 13th Street Drainage Modification Project bid B22-01. The request is to award the bid to Kaminga, you got me, Rude Votes Incorporated in the amount of $717,349.60 and approve a budget increase in the Stormwater Capital Projects Fund not to exceed $200,000. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Leslie Notaro. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Frank Baker. All right, Leslie, you have the floor.
I will defer to them.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is for the 12th and 13th Street Drainage Project. It includes repaving most streets, new curbs, and repiping the pipes that are available in our right-of-way. We're not changing anything on the outfalls that go through private property. And unfortunately, the bids are coming in significantly higher than what we had budgeted for. In this case, $200,000 higher. We got two bids, one for $717,000, the other one for $827,000. So tonight, the engineer reviewed the quotes and recommended K&R as the lowest bidder, and I've given you copies of the bid documents.
Thank you. Do we have any other council comments? Yes.
I do have a question. I don't have a problem with the bid itself. When the bid that was submitted that we're getting ready to maybe approve, when was the ending date that their bid would be good?
We haven't, we would either have to reject it. You mean when would?
When they submit a bid and they say this bid is good for X days?
No, typically they don't say it's good for X days. Not in our bids, there's nothing in there. nothing in our bid document that states that.
I mean, normally they would say it's good for this amount of days, so that if we took, 6 months as an example, to
Right.
approve it, then they would say, well, that's too long because the prices have gone up, et cetera.
Well, they haven't indicated the bid end date.
Okay,
They can remove the bid at any time after.
after they've submitted.
Right.
Okay. But my real concern is, and a lot of this happened before we came on board, so I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but I'm concerned that, our job is to make sure that whatever we spend money on, it's for a very, very good reason, and we're getting the bang for the buck type of thing. So I have had the opportunity to review, both Kyle and Lynn were nice enough to give me copies of the master plan, and I looked into that. Again, I just want to make sure, for example, one item would be we're going to put in different size reinforced concrete pipe. That's going to cost a fair amount of money to do that. But what is the real benefit to that from a stormwater design standpoint? So my gut tells me I would like personally the opportunity, and I don't know exactly the right thing to request, if we table this, and we're able to, for example, bring both the contractor and the engineer into a workshop, and I could ask a lot more questions, just so that we can determine and feel comfortable that the portion of the money we're spending to replace pipes is really going to give us something back to the city. An analogy would be you have an air conditioning system in your house, and it's currently cooling to the lowest of 72 degrees, and you want it to get lower, but it won't. So you bring somebody in and they say, well, it's undersized, so we're going to give you a bigger unit. Okay, then what's going to bring it down to our lowest temperature? 70. And how much is it going to cost us? $5,000. So then there you are trying to make that decision. Is it worth it to you to spend $5,000 to bring the temperature down 2 degrees by getting a larger size system? So I just want to make sure that we understand what the benefits are by replacing those pipes, because my gut tells me we're not really winning a lot there. And that's a big part of the cost of this particular contract. I know that you and I have talked about it before, it's going to give us a little bit more volume in the system, but how many times is that really an issue? When we have a rain event, and we all know now that when you have a rain event and we have high tide and the water's trying to get out, that's a scenario where that volume would come into place. Because it's going to hold a little bit more water in the pipes before it backflows into the streets. So how often would that happen, and how much of a benefit would it be to have a larger pipe that may prevent that issue? So that's what I want to get a better feel for. But I want to make sure that, for example, if we quote tabled it and talk about this in more depth at the workshop, and we could have the engineer there and the contract there to discuss some of that, just to make sure that it's a good expenditure of money for that particular item I mentioned, like larger pipes. Yes.
Yes, sir, Glenn.
We have another agenda item a little further on where we're looking at another price increase of 11%. Now, this one bothered me. This is an increase of 38%. And that's for the $520,000 for 13th and 14th Street. Going back, the original budget way back was like 420. Now, yes, things are changing. Things are changing. 38%, I mean, I'm with Lloyd. I'd kind of like to understand the timeline of this thing, what the increases are in, and whether or not we have some assurances that we're going to meet our specifications and deliverables for that kind of money. So I'm with you, and I would motion that we amend this to go ahead and table the issue until we can have the.
Who wants to, you mentioned tabling also, who wants to claim the motion to table?
The motion that we table this pending inviting in the contractor and having a little more definition of what's involved in the pricing.
All right, so we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Lloyd Roberts. In that case, Patty, you want to take the roll?
Yes.
Councilmember Notaro? No. Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Zabel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gunn?
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis?
Aye. So the motion to table passes at 5-1, and we will take this back to a work session. All right, we are on to item number 20. This is to authorize the city manager to award the 7th Street seawall/boat ramp and the 16th Street seawall renovation project bid B22-02. The request is to award bid B22-02 to Midcoast Construction Enterprises, LLC, in the amount of $225,500 and approve a budget increase in the capital improvement fund not to exceed $23,202. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Frank Baker, do I have a second?
Second.
Lloyd Roberts. Frank, you have the floor.
Long time coming, needs to be done, both streets.
Do I have any other council comments? Citizens? Any citizen comments on this one? No? All right, back to the council with Frank Baker having the last word.
No more.
All right, so this is to award bid B22-02 to Midcoast Construction Enterprises, LLC, in the amount of $225,500 and approve a budget increase in the capital improvement fund not to exceed $23,202. Patty, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Zabel?
Aye.
Councilmember Roberts?
Aye.
Councilmember Notaro? Aye. Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gunn?
Aye.
Mayor Gaddis?
Aye. And it passes 6-0. All right, we are on to agenda item number 21. Do we have any unfinished business? All right, seeing as we have no unfinished business, we'll move on to council comments. Last week, we started with Councilmember Baker. So this, or not last week, but last month. This month, we will begin with Councilmember Zabel.
Yeah, I just want to mention the wonderful activity Parks and Rec put on this past weekend. Really enjoyed it. If you had a chance to come out, it was wonderful music, wonderful food, wonderful time just to talk and meet other people here. So again, thank you very much for all you've done for this county, well, for this city.
I agree. Anything else?
No, sir.
All right, and now we move to Councilmember Roberts.
Yeah, I just wanted to take an opportunity. I had some pretty neat stories. I actually told my wife I was going to write a book, but since I don't have the time for doing that, of all the citizens that I spoke to when we were going through the running for office scenario. So this is going to be like Lloyd's story time. I won't take too long. But one of the neat scenarios I had, I knocked on the door over in one of the condo units, and we talked about the typical things about what's best for the city, what would you like me to focus on, and towards the end, there was a couple, and the husband said, Lloyd, are you a Christian? And I said, yes, I am. He said, we are as well, and if you don't mind, we would like to pray over you for your success in running for this position. So they did, and it still gives me chills today, how good that made me feel while they were doing it. So again, every month I'm going to share a really interesting story with you guys, and if you want to take notes and write it down, you can, and then we can write the book together. So.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Notaro?
No comment.
No comment. Vice Mayor Gunn?
I've got 3 issues. One is along the lines of best practices in managing the agenda. A recommendation I would have is that number 1, let's see here, approval of the agenda. That's a perfect time if somebody wants to pull an item out of the consent agenda, for instance, I would like to go ahead and read the proclamation, perfect time. So I would pull item 14 and 15 from the consent agenda and move it into regular agenda item, and you can make that number 15A or whatever. And at that point, you've adjusted the consent agenda. Once you approve the agenda, you just get to consent agenda, items 1 through 15, call for a vote, and it's done.
I like it.
That's just a recommendation. So that's one issue, is the consent agenda and removing items at the number 1, approval of the agenda. So when you get to the consent agenda, it's just a done deal. The second is the sea turtle presentation. I thought was great, and it goes towards engaging our residents. And I've always referred to it as Bel Air Beach 101. These are the things, how we get a chance to engage the residents and educate them on programs in the community, poison control, traffic control, safety during the holidays, that sort of thing. It just 10 or 15 minutes, maybe look to add more of that stuff into our agenda. It's kind of a neat thing. And the last thing is, it looks like the audio visual is running up and down. We've got visuals in the back. I can't see these, but it looks to me like the residents can see everything from the PowerPoint presentation. Yeah. So kudos to the staff getting that up and running. Great job, and it's really making a huge difference in presentations. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, once again, I'd like to thank everyone who attended tonight. I encourage you to keep coming back. Don't be afraid to contact us with questions and concerns. We want to hear this stuff. So it's not a bad thing if you have a complaint.
Frank.
Did I leave you off? Sure did. I am so sorry. Well, it's because I mentioned you at the beginning. Sorry about that. Frank, go right ahead.
Just two little things. I actually went to Ms. Peters' house earlier this year for the campaign season. She was showing me her home and explaining the beach renourishment to me. Beautiful home. And before she got her efforts to get the beach renourishment, she would explain that the water would come into the bottom of the condo units. And I feel for you, and I don't know why the federal government is holding us to these standards down here in Pinellas County, where I sent to council, I sent to Patty, but just up in New Jersey, they're doing a new beach renourishment next year. They're not having any problems. I know the federal government gives us the lion's share of the money, but our beaches are getting smaller and smaller, and I really feel for you. And on the other thing, on item number 19, I agree on tabling this because what I brought up about 8th Street and the water problem, and I agree with you 100%. It really needs to be looked into. Maybe we need a catch basin rather than just a bigger pipe, and maybe 8-inch pumps to pump this water out. But that's it. That's all I got.
Thank you. I apologize for that. Okay, now, back to where I was. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight, and please, reach out. Feel free to call us, email us, come see us, and bring your questions and concerns, because that's how we know what to do in the work sessions. Other than that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Just a quick question. I just looked over and saw Mr. Reeves there. So do we have something already in place with regards to when he retires, who's going to be the interim? Have we already done that?
I think you're looking at him right over there.
Do we have to do anything?
Yeah, is that official?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and now do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Louis Roberts. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a good night.